This is Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer, and I'm inviting everyone to join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on the Kickin Lawyer fan page on Facebook for Law Talk Live, where we discuss business, politics, current events, and the law. If you miss the live version, you can watch the playback on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast platform. Jerry Mason, the Kickin Lawyer. We're live for another Law Talk here on a wonderful Tuesday. Before we get to the guests, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe across platforms. We are on social media platforms, podcast platforms, TikTok platforms, everything. We're back on Instagram now. If you look at Kickin Lawyer on Instagram, give me a follow. Michelle Allen is our longtime sponsor. She's your go-to in the area for real estate. So feel free to holler at old Michelle Allen. And I think she gets some traction from her sponsorship of our show. If you're interested in sponsoring our show, feel free to reach out to us. We are accepting new sponsorships now, just like Mason's High Octane Martial Arts, creating champions and kicking lawyers since 1993. And, of course, The Cellar, Restaurant and Prohibition Bar. It's where I'll be after this podcast doing trivia on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, we have karaoke. Thursdays is ladies' night. Friday is live music. And it's, of course, great food and conversation every night. So that opens 4 o'clock daily. And, of course, Josh will be glad to help you at Masonite Digital Marketing with your brand's online presence. You can just holler at him at masonitemarketing.com. So with all that said, today I'm joined by a longtime friend of mine. I've known Justin Reid Wallace. He goes by Reid, I think, now as a big bad adult. I know him as Justin. Anyway, Justin was real good buddies with my other brother, Justin. And now he's a grown man. It's weird to me, I guess, because I don't see you regular. When I look at you as a grown man, like I think of you as a little kid back in the day. And so anyway, he's a longtime friend, family friend, and now he's an adult that deals with, we deal with cybersecurity and stuff now.
Yeah, mainly cybersecurity.
Yeah. So you probably look at all our stuff and instantly think it's all liability. We have a huge liability.
Vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's very appropriate guest for episode 101, by the way.
I could take you to school.
I'm sure you could. Oh, I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to lie. I know that as a lawyer, we use an online client management software, and of course everything's confidential and supposed to be. But I've had many CLEs, lawyer in-service trainings, where one of the big warnings they have for us is how we're screwed. Really, they're not secure. I don't know about the encryptions or any of that stuff.
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to protecting data, that's really the key in cybersecurity. Is you have to know what your data is, where it's traveling, and then how is it protected at rest and then in transit. So if it's all cloud-based, that means you're having to send it from your systems to the cloud, and really you kind of rely on that vendor to do all the security because you have zero control of it. Mm-hmm. And so that's one advantage of using cloud-based systems is you kind of remove that layer of responsibility to the vendor, and then that's less responsibility on your part.
Did you go to school for all that?
I did. So my education, I have 12 certifications in IT, including one called a CISSP, which is a pretty difficult cybersecurity certification to get. I also have a bachelor's in cybersecurity and information assurance, and I'm currently enrolled in an MBA program, and hopefully I have 10 credit hours, and I'll have the MBA locked down.
Sweet. That's great. I didn't know that. I mean, I've known you, since you were little, but as adults, everybody's working and busy, and so I don't know. How often do you keep up with Justin?
We talk every now and then. He sent me a message yesterday because he scared me about my dad because Danny Wallace was in a wreck.
Oh, yeah.
So he reached out and was like, hey, is your dad okay? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And so, which I hope Danny's doing well. I know they had to take him to the hospital.
Are y'all related to them?
I think it's a different set of Wallaces.
Okay. Yeah, he's an alderman, sitting alderman, and running for re-election, and he has a golf cart that's road legal. And he was driving down the road over here, and I don't know this factual, but what my understanding is he was correct lane of travel, and the other car veered into his lane, and he didn't see him at all, and just ran over him. So, we hope he's okay. I know he was airlifted, but last I heard he was at least stable. So, hate to hear that about him. So on Justin, though, when he messages you, is it always really inappropriate stuff?
No, not usually. So depends. So usually I kind of send him stuff.
Okay.
We won't hear from each other for a couple months, and then I'll be on the internet and I find some funny image, and I'll be like, Justin will appreciate this.
Jerry says that because I, and Justin have a Facebook message group that can never be allowed.
I was just thinking about security-wise, like we're screwed if any of that ever gets out.
Yeah, all of our careers are done if that message.
Well, I wonder though. I think most people. Well, that's not accurate. I think a lot of people, not most people, a lot of people have very dark humor. And if we were very open and honest about it, there are things that are taboo to some degree that a lot of us probably find humor in. And so you're hesitant to just be like, hey, everybody, look at this. Now, there are some exceptions. There's one friend, Justin's one of them, but I have a couple of people on Facebook that just don't care. They just put whatever out there. Other Justin is, I guess that's why we'll call you Reid. Other Justin is one of them.
Keeps it simple.
Yeah, I know. So tell me about that, though, because you were Justin growing up. So did you just decide you liked Reid better, or what is the deal on that?
It's really kind of a silly story. So, it was a friend of mine when I started my professional career in IT. He went by his middle name to, kind of differentiate the people he knew from work versus the people he knew from back home. So whatever you called him, he would, because he was bad with names and stuff. And then I kind of tried it, and then it just stuck. And so now I go by Reid.
How old are you?
41.
So you've probably been Reid longer than Justin then, I would guess, as a primary
It's
name.
probably getting pretty close.
Yeah. So I know what you're talking about, though, because people that call me Jerry Wayne knew me growing up.
Yep, that's what I
And
call
then people that call me, now not many people call me Jerry. Most of them it's Mr. Mason, or actually I get called Kickin Lawyer probably more than anything. There are people that know me as Kickin Lawyer and don't even know my real name, which I'm cool with it. I don't care. But so I get it. It's different to have, but it's definitely for me instant if they call me Jerry Wayne or Jerwayne. That's what Justin would say.
That's what I always would say. I would say Jerwayne.
Josh, he calls me Jerwayne.
Jerwayne. It's faster. Anyway, it's more efficient to call you Jerwayne.
Very southern. So I get it. I was just curious because I knew that you'd had the Reid thing going. We need to get you and Justin back on and have you dressed just like you did, like Ninja Turtles and stuff, back when y'all were kids. And that would make me feel more normal.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're probably not used to seeing us with facial hair and having kids and
stuff.
Yeah,
as an adult. Well, I think one of the last times I saw you, my kid ran into your truck.
Yes.
I remember that because I was super broke, and I was like, oh, dang. I remember that because I want to say it was when they were on the four-wheeler or whatever, and I snatched my daughter or one of them out of the way, and then they hit your truck.
Yep.
And ran into that truck.
Well, I won't name drop which kid was driving, but you did. You grabbed Jade out of the way?
I think it was Austin. Is that right?
I'm pretty sure it was Austin, if I remember.
I think it was
right.
Austin. He was the daredevil one anyway. Alex was a little, at the time as children, he was a little more responsible, but I think that was it. But that's one of my last times, most recent memories at least, which was a long time ago.
It's been a minute.
Jade is 21 now. Man. So she's old, I know.
Our brother Justin is in the comments watching, and he just commented something that I will not repeat.
Yeah, he's just it's so funny. It's so funny, though, how different we are. And how's your brother?
Oh, he's good.
Is he?
He's still working for Kroger.
Okay, I haven't seen him in years either.
Yeah, he works all the time. Like, most of the time when I do get up here to visit family and everything, he's usually at work. And it's,
Where you live now?
Busy. South Haven.
Oh, you like it there?
Yeah, it's all right. It's a nice area. So we bought right outside of Snowden Grove Amphitheater, and so that whole area is just blowing up. There's a lot of new development and construction, and the schools are good, and lots of shopping and all the good stuff you could want in a town. Yeah,
and we'll go back to cybersecurity, but I'm just it's you finding this out. I was going to call you Justin again. You're finding this out, Reid, that a lot of people watch this and they assume there's all this prep, maybe like there's this. And there's nothing. Like you show up, we come in, I start talking to you. And matter of fact, I have found part of the reason for that is I think some of the best conversations are when we first talk. So I try to not talk to the person until we get started so that the good conversation's on the thing. Anyway, what I was going to say is now as an adult, you've children and married, right? Is she Ukrainian, your wife? So what is her take on all of that? I'm just curious. As an actual, is she American citizen now?
Yes.
Okay, but she was born in Ukraine, raised over there. So what's her take on all this with the Russia-Ukraine war?
Well, honestly, it breaks her heart because, she's kind of in this situation where she's all the way over here, and all of her family are still there. Like, her parents are there. She has 2 brothers who are over there. And so every day we're watching the news and just trying to pay attention to it. We talk to her parents every day. But in her mind, it's, Russians are the aggressors here. And, if you look historically at Ukraine and Russia, Russia has always kind of treated Ukraine pretty bad.
Yeah.
And, it's just another one of those acts of escalation that this regime in Russia decided to take another part of another country by force.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think internationally people are obviously opposed to the Russian invasion. But, Ukraine, and I'm not going to speak out of turn because she would definitely know more than me, and you probably do too, I'm sure. But if Ukraine has had its own set of problems with its government corruption. People are focused on it now as the white hat, the good guys. Mm-hmm. But, there has been some corruption there, too. However, I mean, too corrupt doesn't make one right one, Yeah. So I still don't think that it's necessarily right. Because Ukraine was part of the USSR originally, I think, right?
Yeah, so then when 1991.
Yeah, then they got their independence, and now, of course, a lot of people think Putin's trying to go back to the glory of the USSR. So I don't know. Other people think that he's dying and got cancer, and this is like a last-ditch effort. I don't know. What's her take on it from people over there? Is it like, because of course all we see is the images that are on the news, and it's usually going to be the worst case what they show, the video of the person talking, the little kid talking, and there's a rocket over their head and all this. Is her take from her family though? It's that dire, or are they still functioning their everyday lives in the city, or what's the deal?
Well, they're trying to function in their everyday lives, but she does have some family members who were in Russian occupied areas, and so they were there for a couple of months before the Russians let them leave, and they said it's actually worse than what you see on TV.
Oh, really?
In these villages and these outskirts areas, winter's very harsh in Ukraine, and so the Russian soldiers are coming in and doing things like breaking windows and knocking down doors. So now that home is, uninhabitable during the winter because you just can't survive there.
Sure.
And so there's lots of that happening. She had some family who had to move in with other family members just to, have a place to stay, just to get away from the...
What about like infrastructure and supply chains? Is that still working for them, or...
I guess it depends on the area. Like where my in-laws are, it's somewhat functional. They are not in an area where it's like active combat or anything, but there are some complications with getting stuff, and they notice that prices are starting to go through the roof because it's hard to get stuff in and out. Mm-hmm. Just for, if you want bread or milk or eggs or something, the prices are just going through the roof because it's so hard to get the materials in there.
Have you visited Ukraine?
Yep.
Have y'all gone over there?
Mm-hmm.
Do you speak... Do they speak Russian? Is it correct?
They speak both. So they speak Ukrainian and Russian. So my wife, she actually speaks both. But funny story about that, being married to someone who's a foreign speaker, when she's talking to her mom and stuff, I was learning Russian and started picking up more and more Russian, and then I'd be listening to her have a conversation, then I would just kind of chime in with my opinion on something. And once I started doing that, then she started switching to Ukrainian, which I know zero of. And so now she's like, oh, well, if you understand Russian, I'm just going to start speaking Ukrainian. Well,
is it not a Slavic language too?
They're similar. So the way she explained it to me is that if you speak Ukrainian, you can understand Russian, but Russians can't understand Ukrainian. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because, Portuguese is a base like Spanish. And so even though they're different, they can kind of understand each other and communicate. Or generally, it's what I understand. I speak a little Spanish, very, very little Portuguese, and that's only based on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So because in Brazil, they speak Portuguese. Anyway, but I know I have a friend, Gunner, who's in the Navy, was a student of mine forever. He's an officer in the Navy, and he's in intelligence. And he went to school to speak Russian, and that's what he does. He's fluent in Russian. And I wasn't aware that Ukrainian was different, though. That's odd.
Yeah, they even have a different alphabet. So, like, some of the characters in there, so Russian uses Cyrillic alphabet, and a couple of the characters are different in Ukrainian. So that's how, if you see the actual text written out, you can tell by certain characters if it's a Ukrainian thing or if it's Russian.
Are you fluent in Russian now?
I wouldn't say fluent. I'm probably conversationally fluent. Like I could carry on about the first couple of minutes of a conversation, and I can talk to kids.
Can you say, "Give me some bourbon"?
Be "Дайте меня bourbon."
Дайте меня.
Дайте меня.
Okay, I'll just let you say it. I barely speak English, much less try to speak some Ukrainian or Russian.
I'm pretty sure I'll get a text message going, you said that wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, that's why I was kind of interested in having your wife on, because I was really interested in her perspective on the Ukrainian-Russian war. And plus, I've never met her. All I've seen is the Facebook posts, and she looks like a beautiful, wonderful, intelligent, warm lady. I've talked to you about her, and she's very complimentary. I guess I should say that Reid's mama is sitting over here in the corner.
She's making sure I act right. So.
She said she was going to be quiet, which I'm sure is very difficult, right? Yeah. Anyway. All right. So the cybersecurity, let's circle back to that. So what was the interest in that from, I mean, obviously you've been doing this for a long time now. What did you realize at the time? Because if you started on that path 20 years ago or so, I mean, that was sort of I guess that would have been right around the internet bubble, right? So you kind of knew maybe there was a future in the computers and cybersecurity world.
Yeah, well, I've always, had that interest, and so I think the thing that kind of piqued my interest the most is that when you go into cybersecurity, you have to have that mindset of you need to understand how things work and how to break them. And so, Mom can tell you that years ago she went and bought a brand new personal computer back when I think it was Windows 95, so a long time ago.
Yeah.
And she came home from work and I had it disassembled in the living room floor, and she was rather unhappy about that particular event, and so I put it back together and it worked. So she said, okay, well, you obviously have the mindset to work on computers. So I think it's that curiosity of just, hey, how does this stuff work? And then that kind of got me into IT in general, like how do you fix things?
Yeah.
And then from there I saw the opportunity that, hey, the cybersecurity thing, it's super interesting, like the hacking and all that stuff. And then there wasn't a lot of people in that field, so I was like, okay, well, this is probably a good opportunity to kind of do a career shift into an area where there's not a lot of talent, and it definitely paid off.
Well, so if I know your focus is cybersecurity, but wouldn't you have to know how to do some basic programming and stuff too, or maybe not even basic, maybe advanced programming? Because you gotta counter it. So if somebody's programming against you or developing malware or viruses and all that stuff, do you have to we'll do this. Walk me through exactly what you do. Like what is when you're at your job and there's an issue developed, what do you do? Are you building the defensive walls for it, or are you countering when attacks come, or both?
So technically it's both, but right now I'm in a director position, so I actually kind of do a lot more strategy and policy and documentation. But before that, I would actually monitor the systems and see, okay, is there suspicious activity? So you have all these different things that feed you in logs, like, hey, you have connections coming from China or Russia. It's like, okay, that looks a little suspicious, and then you start digging into it. So it's almost like an investigation. So you get little nuggets of hey, this could be suspicious, and you just kind of follow that bread trail until you find, oh, this is a piece of malware or something. A lot of times it's real hard to reverse engineer malware. So, but to answer your question, you don't have to have programming experience, but it helps. So it's one of those things like I do a lot more scripting than I do programming. So like I can write a script that'll go out and perform an activity or something. But if you ask me program a Windows application, then that's outside my skill set. But so you kind of follow those investigations, and then it leads you to other pieces of, we call them artifacts. So you find an artifact like, hey, there's a log entry that says that they accessed this server, and then you track that down and say, okay, well, what did they do on that server? And so then you create this whole timeline of events saying, okay, here's when we know something came in, here's all the activities the threat actor did, and then, it's all different. So sometimes you'll find pieces of malware that you got to try to figure out, okay, what was it trying to do? Usually nowadays it's going to be ransomware, because that's probably the most common one. So it's going to try to encrypt all your files and then say, hey, if you want to decrypt this, you got to pay me 37 bitcoins or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's all different. So in the different aspects of cybersecurity, you have different types of threat actors. So you have people who are, we call them script kiddies. So it's the people who really don't know what they're doing. They just watch a couple of YouTube videos and go download some tools. Usually they end up doing more damage than they do actual hacking, so they'll just take your stuff offline because they just don't know what they're doing. And then you have the cyber criminal element, which are the people who are financially motivated, which is probably the bulk of the attacks you'll see.
Yeah. And
now those groups are highly professional, highly trained. They usually have support staff, like they have call centers set up with people, like it's run like a business, but it's all to extort or steal money from you. And then the last group would be the nation-state actors, which are Usually, most businesses shouldn't have to worry about that unless you are like a government contractor or something. But they usually try to go after government entities, or they're trying to steal intellectual property.
So if I'm a normal person and am worried about people getting my compromising photographs from my phone, what are some tips that a normal person could use as a cybersecurity expert to sort of avoid the risk?
Well, for let's say your confidential data, I would say you probably don't want to store it on a phone, mainly because the phone is going to be something that could be left at a bar or somewhere, or you leave it in a taxi cab, and then there's ways people can try to exfiltrate data off of those devices. So generally not a good idea to have your sensitive information there. I would say you definitely want to keep it in some place that uses encryption. And you also want to make sure it's using strong encryption, because there are weak encryption algorithms and then there's strong encryption algorithms. So if it's something that's pretty old, it may not be strong enough to not be crackable, they say. But some of the things I do, like I have a flash drive that has all my financial information, bank accounts, all of our important documents and stuff. And so I have it on a jump drive that the jump drive is encrypted. There is a container inside the jump drive that's encrypted, and then there's a software application that has an encrypted database. So it's got 3 layers of encryption to get to all that stuff. Now that's a bit extreme, and I don't think the normal person is going to do that. But it helps to kind of make yourself aware that that's available. Especially in a law office, you have to maintain confidentiality. That's a pretty important thing. So looking at encrypted drives or things like that, or some sort of encrypted service in the cloud would definitely help you out.
Now, when you say encrypted, it's different than just password protected, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's got extra layers of security on the cyber level, I guess.
Yeah, so what it does, it takes your data and everything, on a computer gets down to a bit level, so it's all zeros and ones at the end of the day. So what they do is they take blocks of that data, pass it through a mathematical algorithm that then, obfuscates it. So it's like, okay, now you don't know what this data said. And so
unless you have that encryption.
Unless you have the key. So you have to have the key to decrypt it, and then it takes we call it ciphertext. So it takes the ciphertext and then puts it back into plain text so you can read it.
Well, if that's actually a good explanation of that, because I guess I never really fully understood how it worked. But then, and that makes sense then why some people, I guess, decipher it or are able to, even without the key, figure it out, or have programs maybe that try to decrypt it.
Yeah, the main way that you attack encryption is called brute forcing. So, and brute force literally means you try every possible key until you open it. And so if you have a weak encryption algorithm, then it could be possible for you to crack it pretty easily. There was one that was called Triple DES. It was a data encryption standard. It was built by the government, and so it came out that, hey, there was a flaw in the algorithm where somebody could easily crack and decipher the key, and then they could decrypt the data. So now you have more advanced things, and now quantum computing is coming along, which really hurts encryption, because the whole basis of encryption is that they are mathematically difficult problems to solve. So they use extremely large prime numbers, and then they do all this crazy factoring and stuff. So it makes it CPU intensive to try to brute force and break it. And so one of the disadvantages of quantum computing is it can do those calculations super fast.
Yeah.
So now they're starting to develop a quantum-proof encryption, which is probably going to be the next thing.
Well, of the 3, it was 3 or 4, I guess, cybersecurity risk or threat people that you look at. Which level would maybe have access to quantum computing, though? Isn't it going to be a pretty high level to have that?
That'd probably be nation state for sure.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, I don't know anybody that's got one of those.
Yeah, right now I think there's only a couple companies who have working quantum computers, but that all the mathematicians who develop all this in data encryption, when quantum computing came out, that was the first thing they said was, these are going to be really good at cracking encryption.
Aren't they also going to become like Skynet though, and eventually kill us all, like quantum?
Pretty much.
Doesn't that get to like an AI level or something?
What about when? But I just got that email where all I had to do was wire them some money, and I was going to get $1 million from Algeria. I mean, what about that?
Oh yeah, that's pretty common. So it was one of those things where they still do it because it works, and so they'll send out 100,000 emails, and if one person sends them money, that they consider that a success. And so A lot of times, the rule of thumb is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So
Yeah. So look, I have a quick sidebar on that. I had this happen recently with me. So I'm on TikTok, right? And I'm almost to 10,000 followers or subscribers or whatever on TikTok, which I'm excited about. I think you get monetized at 10,000, and that means I get like a penny. I think I get like, I'm excited about that. But anyway, I got this. I get all these messages. I don't know if Josh monitors a lot of them and responds. I don't know if he even saw it, but I got a message from this female. It looked like a female anyway. Very, very attractive lady. Direct message to me, and I'm a 43-year-old old dude at this point, I feel like. And it was a sort of a just generic, hey, how are you type thing. And her profile, or this person's profile, has like all her doing golf and stuff. She's just all very attractive girl playing golf. So I go, I don't like golf. Something like that. Because I knew this had to be fake. I knew this wasn't an actually really attractive female. And if it was, either way, it's not, I mean, I'm happily married. I wasn't going to play all that DM stuff. Because even if I wanted to, my wife gets access to my phone and she'd stab me in the eye or something. So anyway, then they respond, LOL, how are you, or where do you live, or something like that. And I go, there's no way this is a real profile, like just kind of trolling on them about, and then they quit, they left it alone. But they were trying to troll me on, surely they were eventually going to ask for money or something like that. Because for this girl's, whoever they stole it from, is attractive enough. She would generally on that app have thousands of followers. And this one I think had like 3,000 or something. Small for what it was. But they did a good job on it because all the videos are the same girl. There's a bunch of comments of, all guys, of course, talking smack. But I was like, oh, that's the racket. So they get them on there.
Yeah, one of those spam accounts one time, I told them that I was the king of Wakanda. And they responded, oh, that's so interesting. Tell me more. And so then I had to start explaining to them about how I was the king of Wakanda. And they were all just really into it. And then they asked for money, and I told them to go away. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go through the detail again. I'm not going to waste his time on it. But, I did get scammed that one time when I was late for the airport. And I thought I was calling the American Airlines. And what I did is I Googled American Airlines, and the first number that popped up I called. And what threw me off, because it was a foreign guy, it was an accent, but what threw me off, he did the first thing he did, the two things that messed me up is I called them. So in my head, I'd called the correct number was the first thing. And then the second thing was he initially tried to get me off the phone. Because initially he didn't understand what I was asking for. What I was doing was I was wanting to see if there was another flight, because I was afraid I was going to miss my flight that I was supposed to be there on, and I was wanting to check the time on the flights. And I kept saying the flight number, and he was like, oh, yeah, it's on time. Have a good day. Bye. Like no big deal, like letting me go. But he wasn't understanding that the communication was lost, that I had missed the flight. So anyway, long story short, they conned me out of like $700 right then, and I did it so stupidly because he even stayed on the phone with me, and the whole time. The reason I bring this up is I like to think I'm not gullible, I'm not naive. We all like to think, we're smart enough, we're not getting conned, all this, and you would think I'm sophisticated enough. You couldn't con me like that, right? But I did. But what I learned was it's easy to say that till you're in that element where I was pressured, I was missing the flight, I was in a hurry, I'd paid for this conference, I was going to miss it. So it's all these things going together, and even though I had, it was all fabricated and not real, I got the gift card and the whole deal, gave him the number, I got scammed that way. So that brings me another question I was going to ask you. So that scam was set up, it was one of those where it's on the phone, they're calling you, I'm sure they're in a call center, and they're getting the gift card numbers and the whole deal, and they got you. And I've seen on TikTok and YouTube, there's some hackers that counter scam those guys. Like I'll get on the phone, and then they're able to hack them, and like they're taking their money and shutting their stuff down and all that. So is that, I suppose that's all possible, but is that using the same type of knowledge you have, just in reverse?
Yeah, I believe so. Now, it gets real tricky because I think there's some legal gray areas with these people doing this on YouTube. So, there's the Computer Fraud Act, which is very, very vague in how it's worded. So, it basically says any unauthorized access to a computer system is a violation of the law. So, it's kind of weird territory.
Yeah, well, at this point, I just don't care. I'm glad that they're getting those folks.
Yeah.
Because, majority of the people they scam I think a lot of them would be older people.
Oh, yeah.
I had, when I was a deputy, I got called a lot of times on either identity theft calls
Mm-hmm.
or on stuff scams like this where they'd send them money or whatever. And a lot of times it was older folks that were just trusting people. And so you'll hear a lot of times they'll play like they got an older person's voice, and they'll be in there,
Well, that's
hacking
another
them.
thing they do, even with email. They do what they call create a sense of urgency. So they'll send you this email that's like, hey, if you don't respond to this now, then your bank account's going to get shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Or a new common one that I've seen is Amazon packages. They say, hey, we're trying to deliver this Amazon package, and if you don't respond, we're going to return it back to Amazon. And
they'll also disguise the email addresses to be similar to the actual company name, so it'll be something that looks like it's from Amazon or Walmart or something like that. I've been getting a lot of those.
Oh yeah, and they're getting really good at what they do too. So they're finding really good ways. So years ago, you would have the broken English and the Nigerian prince trying to send his millions of whatever to you.
But there's a lot of money.
Yeah, but it was full of grammatical errors. It was just super obvious that this is pretty sketchy. And then now they actually hire people to teach them English so that they can craft better emails. And so usually, like on a protection standpoint, you're asking about protection. So we do configure tools to do things like email filtering and say, okay, when an email comes in, we want to look at certain criteria in the email to say, do we think it's valid or do we think it's spam? And then they would usually put links or attachments in there, so it was pretty easy to say, okay, yeah, this is a scam email. But now what they started doing is they start sending a plain text email with no links, no attachments, and so super hard to programmatically go through and say, okay, yes, this is a scam email. Mm-hmm. And so now a lot of that we have to rely on like end user training is what we call it. It's where you just educate people. You say, hey, here's kind of what to look for. Here's some things that we aren't going to do as an organization. Like we're not going to, send your payroll information from a weird address or something. And so, just raising the awareness. And October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which is the reason why I want to come here in October.
Nice.
So, trying to raise awareness to everybody, everywhere I can.
I had two other questions I wanted to ask you as we're talking through this. One is somewhat political, so you can answer it or not. It's up to you. But I'm asking because you're the only cybersecurity expert I have spoke with, so I'm kind of interested in your perspective on it. Mm-hmm. And so if you take the politics out of it, I'm asking more of a technical question. Could Russia actually infiltrate an American election? There's arguments that they have, that they influenced Donald Trump election, whatever. And so politics out of it, because I guess what the way they're trying to paint the picture that maybe Russia infiltrated it is that they go in and create discourse amongst people, or they'll push pages to folks or whatever, mostly I guess through social media. But just from your perspective in cybersecurity, how likely do you think it is? I guess one, is it possible? And then two, personally, if you want to comment, do you think it's likely that it occurred or has occurred?
So on the is it possible, so every year in Las Vegas they have a hacker convention called DEF CON. And so I went to DEF CON, I think it was 2016, and they have these little villages set up, so it's like, car hacking village, or it was the first year they had voting village. And so in there they had voting machines, and they had people trying to see could they hack them, or what could they do if they had physical access to the machine. And just about every manufacturer that was there, somebody was able to hack into it and then either reprogram the device to say, if you voted for candidate A, go to candidate B. And so I think that really spurred the manufacturers of those machines to say, hey, we really got to lock down security and make sure, okay, even with physical access, because, most voting booths, you're in a little private booth. So you could be messing with the machine, unplugging stuff, or there was one where all you had to do was turn it off, and then when it turned back on, it went to an administrative console, and so you could just type in stuff and do whatever you wanted to. So they've changed some of that. So to answer the first question, is it possible? Yes. Like if you have physical access to a machine, if they don't have proper controls on that physical access, something like, have you heard of a YubiKey? It's like a little USB drive. It's a security key that you plug into a device that says, okay, you are authorized because you have a physical device connected to this machine. Mm-hmm. You could do something like that to protect them, or you could just say, once they leave the central hub, they're in a read-only state, so you can't make modifications to it. But now to your second question, I think that there were several intelligence agencies that did an investigation into the election, and there was like 17 that said that there were evidence that there was some election tampering, but I don't know if it was actually hacking voting machines. I think it was more the disinformation and trying to.
Yeah, so
sway
that's more what I thought. Honestly, I guess I've naively assumed that our election system is relatively safe. I guess it's stupid anytime you have humans involved to think. Well, I did get a little bothered when they magically found all those.
Yeah, I was going to say, my concern isn't the Russians. My concern is America, our own government, infiltrating the elections. Because I'm pretty sure that happened, guys.
But most of the I think most of the focus on Russia's infiltration or manipulation of the election was disinformation or misinformation to people via social media sites and whatnot, and stirring up pots. And there's like they were saying that I forget the statistic, but of like the 20 top Christian sites or something, like 19 of them are run by Russian hackers or some Middle Eastern hacker or something like that. I shouldn't say hacker, I guess just trolls or whatever they are. I don't know, man. It's a lot that goes on it. So you don't think these phones are safe then? Like
well, it depends on the
for
phone.
just general people. If you're a normal person and you don't have criminal information on here or porn or any of that kind of stuff, like you don't have the bad stuff, right? But I've got there may be passwords in there to different stuff, bank information. I use the apps that have my password saved on my phone. So how safe is that?
Is it an iPhone?
Yeah.
So iPhone generally, is it jailbroken?
I don't know what that means.
Okay, so if you don't know what it means, so jailbreaking means that you take the factory image off of it and you put a third-party one that unlocks, features and functionality. So generally when you do something like that, you reduce the security on the device, but Apple's usually pretty good about keeping, up to date with, hey, here's a security update. Now, the problem is most people ignore it. And they don't say, oh, this new version of iOS is available. I'm just going to ignore it until it forces me to do it. You should really do that every single time, because the way it works is the moment they release that patch, there's a clock that starts, because now the hackers know, oh, there's a vulnerability in this phone. And in the patch notes, they kind of tell them, here's what we're patching. So it could say, like, okay, the Wi-Fi chip has a vulnerability in it, and so we're patching it. Well, now the hackers know, okay, well, that's the area we need to look at to see, can we find the vulnerability and start exploiting it before enough people patch the thing. And so the last statistic I read said that it takes about 15 days for the hackers to develop a new exploit once it's been announced, just because now they know what to look for. And so I would say update the devices. Don't jailbreak them, because that reduces security. And then for most people, I think it's fine. Like I use a password manager because I use different passwords for every single site, which is super annoying. But especially when Yulia asked me, she's like, "Hey, what's the password for Kroger?" And I'm like, "Hang on, let me pull up the password manager. Let me find Kroger. Okay, here's the crazy long password." But for me, that's operational security, and it's something that you should just, since I work in the space, it's like, okay, it makes sense for me to do that myself, because it's kind of hypocritical if I, if I'm very laxed at home, but then I'm telling people, hey, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. No, I understand that. But also your perspective, and I don't want to say it's biased, but it's skewed slightly because of your job. It's just like my position doing mostly criminal defense. There's things that I think about, or being a cop for 12 years. Like my wife kills me constantly, either leaving her vehicle unlocked or leaving her purse right on the console, like literally right here, just a present for whoever wants to come by and steal it, and just it literally happened. Like we had people break in her car and steal her purse, and then run across Judge Peeler's yard. He's our neighbor, dropping all, because they were kids. They had all the credit cards, but they didn't realize they had value. So they're throwing the cards as they run across. There's a line of them taking the cash out. I think it was like $2, and then they stole her iPad. And so that's how we called them and got it back. Because I'm the defense lawyer and had to go testify against these guys that had arrested it. And then a year later, guess who I end up appointed to defend? One of the boys that broke into my wife's car. Yeah, so ironic. My point, though, was even after that, to this day, she'll still leave her purse just sitting right there. Just kills me. But my point is, I know that, is it likely that she's going to get, her stuff stole again? I don't know. Probably not, statistically. But I think about it, just like you think about this cybersecurity stuff all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well,
do you still enjoy it, doing that work?
Yeah. It's fun.
Well, is it fun to the point where in your off time you read about it, like for fun?
Well, here lately I've been reading about MBA, so I've been focused
Because you've been focused on your schoolwork, yeah, sort of
but
associated with it.
prior to that, then I'm actually part of a couple websites where you go in and do like practice hacking and stuff. So
Okay.
like they have a couple websites that are like educational playgrounds. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, here's a vulnerable system. Can you find the vulnerability and hack into it? And it's kind of gamified, so you gain points as you hack more systems and stuff. And so I enjoy that aspect of it, and it's super helpful when you're a defender because you have to know how the attackers are attacking.
Yeah.
And so when you have that, knowledge of, okay, if I was going to attack this system, here's what I would do. So you say, okay, well, this is how I'm going to defend it because I know the areas they're going to attack.
Huh.
And so we use a lot of military-esque terms, like we call them threat actors. Their vulnerabilities, exploits, all that stuff. So
Yeah, well, to some degree, you're a detective.
yes,
Really. I mean, you're trying to analyze, a detective and a doctor, because you're analyzing the problem. You have to diagnose the problem, and then you have to come up with a prescription or a remedy to fix the problem.
Yep.
So, I mean, I understand. It's
And you
very
also,
interesting.
there's some non-technical aspects too. Like sometimes there'll be a business process. Like, part of our business will say, hey, we got this new function that we want to do. Is it going to increase our risk or something? And sometimes business people don't think, in terms of
Sure.
of cyber risk. They only think of business risk. So it's like, how's this going to impact my bottom dollar? Not, oh, is this going to expose our client data or something? And so we come in and kind of look at the process and say, okay, well, how's that data flowing through a system? And then we can say, okay, here's the spots where we have concerns and we need to put in either compensating controls, or you say you're going to have to come up with a new solution because this is just too risky. And
So explain, I'm going to ask you one more sort of technical question just because I don't know the answer. Explain the dark web to me. First of all, I've never been on it. I hear it exists, and I hear like shady stuff goes on. But I go to the internet, but I don't understand how to go to no dark internet, or what's the deal?
yeah, so really the dark web is just more, so there's this thing on the internet called indexing. So like Google has these crawlers that go out and just look at all these different websites. So you can go to Google and search for, the Kickin lawyer, and it's going to come back with search results. So the dark web are a series of websites that do not get indexed. So you can't just go to Google and search for them. A lot of time, or the most common one I know how to access is something on the Tor network, which is called the Onion router. So it's a whole different routing protocol of the internet. So you have to have a special browser, you have to have special configurations, and then the websites are usually these crazy hexadecimal, super long URLs that you just have to know. Like if you type in that URL, it'll take you to that website. And so that's how they kind of circumvent a lot of stuff, because unless you know that is where you need to go, you'll never find it.
Yeah.
And so that's really what they consider the dark web. And there are some pretty shady stuff out there. Like there was one that got taken down called the Silk Road. I don't know if you heard about it, but basically it was kind of like a eBay for illicit materials. Like you could order drugs, you could do, weapons and all sorts of stuff. And it was taken down. And I think that guy is still in prison. The guy who ran it.
Mm-hmm. So you talking about illicit stuff. Josh and I have talked a lot, because we talk about investments and stuff often on here, about cryptocurrency. And my very base understanding of cryptocurrency is that, and this is on a non-illegal use, but for whatever transactions, it's one of the, to me, most cleanest forms of the transaction because it's transparent. You've got the blockchain right there to look at, which is effectively the ledger to see everything that's happened.
And there's no middleman.
Yeah, but obviously governments don't like that because it's hard to get their money on it.
That's right.
But what are your generic thoughts on cryptocurrency?
I kind of have mixed feelings about it. Like, I own some crypto because it's one of those things. It's like it's an investment opportunity that you shouldn't pass up on.
Yeah.
But there's still part of me is the cybersecurity guy going, okay, like with Bitcoin, we don't know who the guy is who created it. Like it's an anonymous person who developed that white paper. So my question is like, okay, how do we know for sure that they didn't code something into the blockchain that one day they're just going to cash out everything and then everybody's going to be left high and dry? So I have that little bit of skepticism, but I'm just kind of a generally skeptic person anyway. So when I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, what's the catch to it? And so I haven't really found a catch yet, but doesn't mean that one doesn't exist.
So what you say you own some cryptocurrency. What's your preference? Like, do you have multiple coins, or is there are you like, I have mostly Bitcoin and Ethereum because they're kind of standard. Now I did occasionally invest in some of those crap coins that came through. Like I had some Dogecoin and What's the other one, Josh?
I had some Sheborg.
Yeah,
Shiba super fringe. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that, a little bit of this, but mostly Ethereum and Bitcoin.
Yeah, so most of mine is I think Ethereum, Bitcoin, and then I dabble in a couple other ones like Cardano.
Yeah, and I have some Cardano.
I got some Cardano.
So that one, and then I started buying some of those that were kind of on the outskirts where it was like super cheap to get a couple thousand of them. It's like, okay, it's kind of a crapshoot. Is it
just in case? Yeah.
If it hits and takes off, maybe I can cash out. And so far, I have not become a Bitcoin millionaire. So
yeah, well, I watched. Have you seen the Netflix special on that?
Huh.
It's very interesting. Netflix has there's two. There's one. I think they're both on Netflix. One is specifically about cryptocurrency and people that have done well with it. And then the other one that was real interesting was about the pump and dump with GameStop. And it's really interesting because a lot of those people that made millions are normal people that just got lucky and got in. And then it's these hedge fund managers who are crying, who have been raping most people for years.
Yeah.
And now the small guy, the little guy, is finally getting over on them with GameStop. Anyway, it's interesting to watch that. Both those documentaries I thought were well made.
Yeah, and that situation is what kind of made me a little upset with Robinhood. Just whenever they went in and they stopped certain transactions.
Yeah, that's straight up.
I was
there that day.
So they covered that. They covered that because we were that was that right in the middle of the pandemic or just after the pandemic?
January, February. I remember because I missed the GameStop bump, but I made a ton of money off of AMC and Dogecoin, which is the big spikes that followed it immediately after. But I was there. I had my Robinhood account open, and I remember when they stopped that and how everybody was so upset that they stopped allowing people to actually cash out their GameStop stocks, and I was like, "That's
well." When that all went down, me and Dave, who was one of my law partners at the time, bought like 3 monitors, and we were basically day trading during the morning. So we would come in here, set up. We were just all into it, and it was just by chance that it was during that GameStop thing. And most of my trading I did was on Robinhood. And so, yeah, we were both very frustrated with the way they handled it. But, part of the reason, and of course, the CEO said it had nothing to do with it, but the way their business model is set up, they are backed by that bank, the main bank that was either collateralized or somehow invested in the hedge fund that ended up being hurt the most by this pump of GameStop because they had shorted the stock so far. Anyway, there was definitely some motivation there we got to stop this bleeding. And it was at the risk of the user. But, it was a good hit on them at the time. And hopefully, of course, that was through Reddit comments and all that. So Reddit's almost dark web-ish. There's a lot of randomness on there, too.
There is a lot of randomness there, but I wouldn't consider it dark web-ish.
Well, see, I just don't know enough about it to know.
Yeah, well, when the podcast ends, I'll talk to you about it.
Oh, okay.
Dark web is where you go when you want to order a clown. When you want to order a clown off the internet.
Oh, yeah. I think I've seen.
Yeah, there's a video on TikTok. Yeah, these guys order a clown off the dark web, and it shows up at their house, and it's like super creepy acting. Yeah, you need to watch those. I'll send you the video.
Yeah, there's some other ones where people order random boxes, and they'll just get this box delivered of just random stuff.
Interesting.
And you'd never know what you're going to get. And
yeah,
I wouldn't recommend it. I'm
not interested in any of that.
Our brother Justin says he has coffee can coin.
My mother said you will always be Justin to her.
Oh.
And then
yes, ma'am.
Our Justin has said multiple things that he probably shouldn't.
Yeah, speaking of that, one of the things you kind of mentioned about all the stuff that you have on social media, so that's another thing that we try to tell people to be careful about because, even now in job interviews, like if your Facebook profile is public, your employers could go out there and look at your Facebook history, and then that could be the reason why you don't get
No, it is. Like when we go to, even us, when we consider people as candidates to hire here, one of the first things we do is look at their social media. And I'm aware of that. And, of course, I have tons of presence online. But, I'm in a position that's different than most people. I don't have any bosses. Like, I'm the boss pretty much I have business partners and stuff, but the majority of them, I'm the managing partner. So there's not really anybody I answer to other than the consumer that does or doesn't buy my products. So I'm in a different position, and I'll always be like that. Like I have no interest or goals in the next, however long I live to work for anyone. But everybody's different on how they do. Now there's other pressures that come with that, but my point is I can say whatever right now, and the repercussion is people may or may not use my services and businesses. But it's not like I get fired from my job. But you're right. I tell clients all the time, whether it's criminal clients that are looking at, looking at jail time, or divorce and custody clients. Both of those are cases where even personal injury that have come in, they're going to look and say, "Are you going to the gym?" But yet you're saying your back's hurting, and they use that against them all the time in court. And then, so I'm fully aware that if I do this, I can, especially if I continue to do this kind of thing where it's just free flowing conversation. I have and will say things that either are at times offensive or stupid or ignorant comments, and then my opinion may change in the future. And I just have to hope that people will eventually see that I'm a normal person and that my thoughts can evolve.
I thought you were going to say that people will eventually see that I'm right.
No, sometimes I'm wrong. Like that's why I'm open to certain arguments that a lot of people would think are ludicrous right now, because I'm open that in the future I'll be wrong. My point is, like, I don't recommend that people do like I do, where everything is on social media. It's just that I'm not doing anything illegal. I don't have anything. There's right now that I know of. I don't have anything that's a ton of risk other than just people not liking me, I guess. But
well, I mean, you may have some risk out there, but it would have to be a highly targeted attack. Because when I look at that, I look at, okay, so, if I wanted to do a targeted attack on you, one of the first things that you do when you're a hacker is you do, reconnaissance. And so you go out there and you say, okay, so I want to hack the Kickin lawyer. Mm-hmm. First thing I'm going to do is look at your social media. Can I build a profile about you? Do I know enough about your interests? Can I find, possibly what your Wi-Fi password would be, or I can create just a generic list of, okay, here's the terms that show up the most on your website. Mm-hmm. Chances are either that or your kids' names or your pets' names, probably what you use for a password somewhere. And then you can go in there and start, process a deduction, figuring out, okay, how do I break into your account? Mm-hmm. So one of the things I do is, like, our Facebook profiles, first, we rarely post anything. Second, we have all of our stuff set to private. Mm-hmm. And then we also don't put pictures of our kids on social media. Like, if you go through ours, like, no, it annoys mom, but we never post pictures of the kids online. Just, we're super restricted there. But, when you build those profiles and you do that reconnaissance, then it kind of helps you perform an attack against a business. So, and then I think probably the most common way that you would do it is Wi-Fi, because a lot of people don't know how to configure their Wi-Fi. So, like, if you have wireless here, more than likely it's using default settings. It's, I could go sit in the parking lot and just snoop all of your Wi-Fi traffic and then take it home, crack it offline, and then come back and then try to get connected to your network and then see what can I see. So those are some things. So, whenever most people don't think like that, because there's a scale. It's like, okay, you have convenience on one side and you have security on the other. And so you try to find that good medium of, you got enough security, but you're not making it so inconvenient that it's unusable. Mm-hmm. And so trying to find that balance is pretty difficult.
Well, your internet provider, do they have any just general security on encryption? Like, if you got Xfinity internet, is there something there, or is it just not matter? Depends on your password.
A lot of it's password strength, and password hygiene is pretty important too. So, like, one thing that we say is that you don't use passwords of something that's in a dictionary. Because one of the common things people will do is whenever you authenticate to Wi-Fi, for example, you have to do what's called a WPA handshake. So, like, your device reaches out to the wireless router and says, I'm this person, I have the key, here's the key, but it sends it in a hashed format, so it's not the actual password. But if I can intercept that hash, then I can take it offline and see, okay, I want to pass it through something called a rainbow table, which is a bunch of dictionary words that have already been hashed, and see, okay, does this match anything that I already know? Mm-hmm. And if it does, I can grab the password and say, is that the valid password, and then get connected to your Wi-Fi. And then from there, then you just kind of snoop around and, I think I read a statistic one time that said that in a normal hack, the dwell time, the amount of time that a hacker will stay in your system looking at stuff, is around 195 days before they actually conduct an attack.
Dang.
So there's some where there was reports where threat actor got in to a business. I can't remember the name of the business, but they were in there for over 200 days. They deployed a ransomware attack, so they encrypted all their corporate files and said, we want a $15 million ransom. And then the company came back and said, hey, yeah, we can't afford a $15 million ransom. And they said, well, here's your financial statements and everything. We had our accountants look at it, and we feel that $15 million is a reasonable ransom. I mean, so they were in there that long that they pulled all their financial records. I mean, they knew everything about this business before they
Now,
triggered an attack.
you don't have to say who specifically you work for, but is your company get hired by other companies to review, or are you working for a company in their cybersecurity division?
Work for a company in their cybersecurity department.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So it's you look a lot of it specific to whatever that company does on their stuff. That's
But I do have a pretty connected network, so I'll have people in different industries reach out.
Oh,
and go,
sure,
hey,
no,
man, what's your
yeah.
opinion on this? So
I get it.
I help people with healthcare, banks, because all of them have different regulatory compliance. Like you got HIPAA for healthcare, you got Graham Leach for banks, and then if you're a certain merchant level and you process credit card transactions, then you have PCI. So you got all these different standards of security that you got to at least be aware of.
Sure,
when you're
sure.
in the space.
How long have you been at the job you're at now?
14 years, but almost 15 years.
Man, that's good. It's a long time.
Yep.
That's why you're management level now, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which I do, eventually I'm trying to move into a career position called a Chief Information Security Officer, so it's a C-level executive, and so that's part of the reason why I'm going for the MBA. I have a ton of certifications. I already have the bachelor's degree, and I kind of felt that MBA really just kind of rounds me off as a good candidate for those executive
Well,
positions.
I don't know how it is in the IT world. I tell people this generically, is that nowadays, because of how easy it has gotten to get a bachelor's degree, is that I think most people should get a bachelor's degree. Now, yours is obviously a little specific, but I think that generally the bachelor's degree, it's not like it. What I was raised on, and you're a little younger than me, was you needed the college degree to get a good paying job. College degree. Well, everybody's got one. So the only way to set yourself apart is with a graduate degree. Once you get a graduate degree, I think there's still some protection if you've got a master's, a doctorate, whatever, that it might bump you to a little bit of a higher level. I do generically think, though, with a couple of exceptions, and IT may be one of them, 'cause I don't know nothing about it. Medicine's probably one, and maybe even law's one. Generally, college degrees are, I hate to say a waste of money, but
I'll say it. They're a waste of
yeah,
money.
kind of a waste of money. I mean, I have a $140,000 student loan debt. As we sit here right now, my student loan debt is $140,000. Now, I have a bachelor's, I've got 2 master's degrees, and I've got a doctorate, right? So that's a lot of education. But, I mean, I'll probably never pay it off, to be honest with you. And that's the only thing, like a lot of the liberal-minded folks, I kind of, hey, man, let's get rid of the student loans, bankrupt the whole system, but let's get rid of it.
Hey, I'm still going to take advantage of it too. So I was actually, so my whole student loans, I think I'm maybe $22,000 for the whole.
So it'll wipe
reprint.
most of yours out.
Yeah, it will.
That's great.
And for the masters, I decided to pay that out of pocket, so I didn't do student loans for that. So that was a bit of a hit.
Well, I didn't. For me, there was no option. I knew though that if I could get, I just saw there was a door there that if I could get the law degree, that I could step through to a whole nother level in life. And for me, it was. I was at a point where I had so much debt from being a young dad. As you know, at 18, I had a kid. And so there was a lot of debt I had to accumulate to try to get going. I was sort of behind the curve to start with. And then it seemed like no matter what I did through my 20s, I was spinning my wheels. I was trying to make more money, and there's more debt, and there's more of this and more of that. And so I needed something that was sort of a catapult to another position. So for me, it was worth it. But I can see how a lot of people that don't have my sales personality might not benefit as much from a $140,000 student loan, that I did. It was
I
worth
kind
it
of
to
needed
me.
that motivation too. So this I can thank Yulia for, because she was the one who motivated me to go back to school.
Yeah.
And so my bachelor's, the reason I ended up with so many certifications was the bachelor's program. It's at a school called Western Governors University, so it's all self-paced, it's online.
Yeah.
So as many classes as you can complete in a term, you can, I think the first term I did like 28 credit hours or something crazy. This master's program I've already done like 30 hours in less than 6 months. But she motivated me to go. She was like, hey, you're a smart person. Why didn't you finish this degree? And so I was like, you know what? You're right. Why didn't I?
Man, she seems like a good person. She seems to be a good mother. For whatever reason, she likes you.
I know. I haven't figured it out yet.
Does she have a sister or something? Josh is single.
She has no sisters.
No sisters or cousins. Or she got a brother, maybe? I mean, it is 2022. Josh, you want a brother?
No, I'm good. I'm a pest.
But yeah, she was the motivating factor. And then when COVID hit, I was sitting there debating on the MBA, and I said, I kept talking about it for about a year. I said, I think if I go for this MBA, it's really going to kind of help that career. And she finally looked at me this past summer and went, either do it or stop talking about it. And I was like, okay, that's all I needed to hear. So I went for it. And
well, that's
hopefully
good.
I'll have it finished here in the next couple months.
So tell me, again, this is sort of personal, so answer it or don't. But what's it like being an American that's married to someone that wasn't raised American? Because, we have a lot of different views on a lot of things compared to, I've been to Korea, China, a lot of the Asian countries. And one of the things that was that struck me in my earlier years was the different perspective on things. Like even things like public displays of affection or, your religious views or all that. How has that been melding your two, I guess, cultures?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I learned a lot. So there was a whole bunch of things about, Ukraine that I just didn't know in the culture. But at the end of the day, they kind of remind me of other Southern people. So they're very, polite, welcoming, warming. Like when I went to Ukraine, they treated me like family right off the bat. They were showing me all these monuments. They were real interested in saying like, hey, here's this thing, and I got to see all these old Soviet monuments and whatnot, which are things that you never see over here, like a hammer and sickle everywhere, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. But they kind of just welcomed me in like I was part of the family, and that was part of the reason why Yulia and I kind of hit it off is that culturally we just kind of meshed. Like we have a similar mindsets, interests, and everything. We both like to travel, but it's eye opening. I think it's actually pretty positive for me because when you see these different cultures and these different perspective on things, like one of the things that kind of blew her mind when she came here was return policies at stores, because in Ukraine, once you buy something, it is yours. There is no returns, and so I remember we were somewhere and I was like, well, I think she was looking at a pair of shoes or something, and I was like, well, buy them, go take them home, try them on. If you don't like them, we'll take them back. And she was like, what do you mean take them back? And it's just little bitty things like that are pretty interesting, but. It's a awesome culture. I mean, it's very family oriented. They're like when her parents come here, they always try to do lots of stuff for us. And I'm like, hey, you're kind of in a situation where it's a little difficult for you right now. I don't think you should be trying to help us. We should be trying to help you.
Yeah.
But still, that's just their mindset. Like my in-laws came this summer, and they were here for I think right at 3 months. And so while he was here, he was trying to fix everything around the house. He was trying to fix fences and all this. And I'm like, hey, man, we brought you over here so you could get away from, the situation for at least a little while. And we're still trying to convince them to come back, maybe in the spring. They have businesses over there, so they had to get back so they can make sure they can take care of their businesses as best they can. But, so hopefully we'll get them back here in the next few months.
And you have how many kids with her? Two. How old are they?
6, and one is 19 months.
19 months. I knew about the first one, and I probably knew about the second one via Facebook or something. But, well, congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you.
How's that been, being a daddy?
It's different. It's I'm surprised I still have hair, and my hair has not turned gray.
Well, they're still little, so.
But it's fun. It's I have learned that my daughter has probably the best mix of mine and Yulia's personalities. Except it's super frustrating because I swear this kid will make a good lawyer because she loves to argue with you.
Well, she's a woman, right? No offense.
I'm not saying that.
I'm just saying.
But yeah, so it's awesome. Oh yeah, so Yulia, she has a law degree in Ukraine.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder how that works. I'm sure she could check with the American Bar Association. Is there no way she can take some remedial thing or sit? Does she have a Juris Doctorate there, or what's it called?
I forgot what the actual title. It's got a super long name, but
what did she do over there in law?
Oh, I think a general lawyer.
So what was it? Just generic, whatever, like boutique law, whatever walked in the door type stuff, or did she work for a firm or?
Not for a firm. I think she ended up working for a police department at one point, and then another company in like an HR type capacity as a lawyer. But over there, they treat school a little bit different. Like, over here, people talk about, are you going to go to college? In Ukraine, it's like, okay, you're either going to college or you're going to some VOTEC school to learn a trade. And so, it kind of blew her mind when I said, I never finished my bachelor's degree, because she was like, what do you mean you didn't finish?
How do you not finish
it? How are you employed if you didn't finish a degree?
Yeah. That's interesting.
They finished one semester.
Is it all government paid?
I think so. I think because over there they have a lot of socialized system. Like I know their healthcare is socialized, and I think education is too, unless you go to certain schools or you go for certain jobs. So you were kind of mentioning corruption before, back before Maidan and the when Viktor Yanukovych was kicked out of Ukraine. Back in those days, it was you got to grease the palms of somebody to get into like law school or. A pretty important job over there is a notary because notaries carry a lot of power in Ukraine. And so if you want to become a notary, you're going to have to know the right people, and the right people are going to have to get paid for you to get into the program. And I think they're trying to change a lot of that now. Yeah, they've had a couple different presidents where they're like, hey, we want to have these closer ties with the EU, and if we want to go more that direction, we've got to get a grasp on some of the corruption and stuff.
Well, I'm a notary also. So,
hey,
just so you know.
You ever want to go to Kiev, man, I can help you out.
Yeah, I'm a notary right here. So, well, look, man, looks like we're getting over an hour, so I'll start tying it up. If people, I assume you don't mind answering some cybersecurity questions. If they wanted to find you, they may not be able to, sounds like. But if they wanted to find you online or something, is there a way to find you?
Yeah, people can send questions. My email is reid.wallace@gmail.com. So, I can
R-E-I-D.
try to help. R-E-I-D.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I call you Justin.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, I appreciate you coming on. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
You and your mama. Your mama's kind of a big Kickin Lawyer fan over there. I don't know if you know.
Oh, yeah.
She's been trying to get me to ride bulls and stuff. Yeah. No. So look, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I don't know it's gonna happen. Like, I had been sparring before the Rocky play. I had been sparring every Monday night at my martial arts school, right? And I had a young buck come in a month or two ago before Rocky, so maybe 2 months ago, and I was putting a good whooping on him. Like I was putting a good enough whooping on him, and this guy was like world ranked. He stopped and he made the comment that I moved pretty good for a 43-year-old, and I said, "Well, it looks like I moved pretty good for a 20-year-old because I'm whooping your tail, But then it was all fun and games, right? It took me like 4 days to recuperate though after the sparring session because my left Achilles tendon was hurting, my right knee was hurting, my hips were hurting me. I'm just older, so I can still, once I'm warmed up, I can hang okay. But like, so riding a bull or something like that,
It's a mechanical bull.
yeah, I don't really think it matters which kind of bull it is. I'm pretty sure that 8 seconds I would pay for several weeks. So I have to be smarter. I was telling a guy earlier today, our back porch has it's about 3-foot concrete slab, and then there's some steps to the right of it. Well, back in the day, I would just run straight off my back porch, no problem. Well, now I go, and I go down the steps. You just got to make smart decisions. So
yeah, I know how it feels, man. Like the other day, Liam was on the couch and he did that, toddler, I'm about to roll off, and so I did the dad dive to catch him, and then I immediately regretted it, felt that pain go down my spine, and I was like, okay, I'm not as young as I used to be.
Yeah, it's rough. Age is a rough thing.
It
But I
catches up with
mean,
you.
I think a lot of it's bull though, where a lot of the older folks are like, oh, I can't. No, I think you're like, honestly, I have so many ailments from injuries that I probably should be on pain meds and stuff, but it's just I accept that this is how life is now. It's a life lived well. I've done a lot of stuff, so I got different little, hiccups, but it's okay. I really think most people can still do a lot of things. The difference with me compared to normal people that are just is I've done this my whole life, especially like martial arts have been physical and all that, so I can still do splits. I can still do all kinds of stuff that I think most 43-year-olds can't do. And I get that's a difference. But I do think people should step outside their comfort zone and try to do things, but maybe not ride a bull. I have ridden a mechanical bull, by the way. I have. And Justin, who may still be on here, has ridden, he did the real bull. You remember that? Y'all were buddies, and he went to the Tough Hedeman bull riding school.
He
and
got like horned in
then he
the
got
face or
stepped on.
something. Yeah, that was it.
He got stepped on,
Yeah.
and he decided, maybe I shouldn't ride bulls anymore. So
Yeah, I think I've actually been there for quite a few of y'all's injuries. I have a video somewhere of you getting your nose broke.
that's probably that video that she's got over here. Yeah, and I've had it's been broke twice. Anyway, it's good times. Well, man, it's good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your lovely mother. We'll have to give her a hoodie or something since she's such a big fan. Yeah. And anyway, I want to thank all you guys for watching. I do want to remind you, though, that this weekend, the Ruffin Theater is having the Rocky Horror Show, which I am in. I would not, that may make you not come, but it is Friday and Saturday, and then it's next Friday and Saturday. So if you're around the Covington area, feel free to come. As Josh is showing you there, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe across platforms, including TikTok. I do want to thank Michelle Allen. She is a longtime sponsor of the show, and she's your go-to realtor if you're trying to buy, sell, rent, lease real estate in the area, really anywhere. She'd be glad to help you out with that. And of course, Mason's High Octane Martial Arts is where I've been training and train people for years and years and years. And you can go to masonsmartialarts.com, and we'd be glad to have you come start your own journey there. And the Cellar Restaurant Prohibition Bar, I will be there today as soon as we're done here for trivia tonight. We're open every day, 7 days a week at 4 p.m. Great food, great drinks, a lot of fun there. Come see us at the Cellar. And Masonite Digital Marketing, we'll be glad to help you with your online presence, branding, social media, websites, etc. Josh will help you. Just visit him at masonitemarketing.com. So thank you guys for joining us today. We'll be live again next Tuesday with another Law Talk. And like I said, don't forget we're back on Instagram. So go over there and give me a follow. I appreciate it. And leave all the comments that you like. So thanks again, Justin. We'll see you guys next week. Keep kicking. Thanks for watching, guys. Just remember that this is not legal advice or investment advice or business advice. This is for fun and entertainment purposes only.